Welcome everyone to today's Force Friday. Happy holidays, by the way, everyone, right? We're here on Christmas Eve, 2021, day before Christmas. Those of you that have obviously celebrated other festive holidays, such as Hanukkah, for instance, again, happy holidays to you as well. We are talking to many different countries around the world in each one of these Force Fridays. So like I said, all the best to you. So let's say hello to Swenley, bring you in. How you doing?
Yeah, awesome. Ready for some Christmas Eve sketching.
Yeah, exactly. So I was, to be transparent, I was originally thinking like, hey, we're going to do Santa Claus character design today. Who knows, maybe we'll do that the last few minutes that we have today. But I didn't want to break the momentum that we have going here with these with these figure drawings and these time limits. I think we're kind of on a good stretch. Today might even be the last day. I have to see how these 10s go. We might do one more. If we do, we'll do 20s next week. Not sure yet. But I think it's important for you, the audience, to recognize how much is capable, right? You're capable of generating and thinking about within each one of these time spans. So we've done 30 seconds. We've done 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute. Today's the 10s, right? What does 10 minutes look like? I have to tell you, it's very rare that I even draw at 10 minutes, especially while teaching. Most of the drawings I do are 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes most. So I have a bunch of little topics I want to cover with you today. And again, of course, if you are enjoying the content of our channel here, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you hit the bell, you'll get the notifications, right? So you don't have to sit and worry about missing a Force Friday. So let's get to it, right? We have a lot of stuff to cover and the drawings are going to take more time today. So let me head over to Photoshop. So here's the three main subjects I want to discuss. We're going to talk about process. Now that we're putting more time into the drawings, for me, that is sort of a warning bell. It kind of makes me want to back off a little bit and go, oh, wait a minute. 10 minutes is a lot of time for me. 10 minutes is precious. Like, I want to make sure I don't waste my time. So I'm going to share with you like how to do that, how to make the most out of your time. We're going to talk about like zooming in and out. The challenge now is that we're going to start going more into more and more detail in these drawings. So how do you do that, right? Because the majority of what Swenley, Mattesi, and I teach is around big picture thinking, right? We want to see the full figure. Now we're going to be talking about a lot of little stuff today. So just thinking about that. And last but not least, the way a lot of the detail will be happening is surface line. And the other way, of course, to get detail is anatomy, right? I'm going to talk mostly about surface line today. I'm not sure, Swenley, if you're going to focus more on surface line or shape and anatomy, but both of those tools are ways of spending your time, right, wisely. So so let's get to it. I think first I just want to talk about process with you guys. So on drawingforce.com, premium and mentored students, they learn, there's two processes we basically go through. Number one, I'll give you the first process. Number one is quite long. We go through reference, and then, so let's call this A. Then from reference, students go through something called the gravity guide. So that's B. In C, they go through an experience. It's either like skating or the roller coaster. All right, so it's C. This is driving me nuts. I like numbers better. So there's 3 steps so far, right? References, by the way, I consider a step. It's really important to pick good reference, okay? So gravity guide, skating or roller coaster, this is an experience, a force experience. And what do I mean by that? I mean that drawing to me isn't just mental, it's physical, right? Now we're trying to get you to feel the idea of drawing with energy. And that's a very tricky thing because it's feely versus just teaching you content. But I think it's really important. We all try to get, the students on the website to understand this experience, right? And I use all kinds of metaphors, of course, to go with this. After the roller coaster, then you start drawing, right? So right in here, we could put a dashed line. And I have students go with blind drawing and then these 50-50s or half-halves. I'll explain this in a second. And then finally, traditional, right? So this is like, this is process, call this process 01, right? There's lots of goals behind this. Primarily, I have students draw blindly, meaning they look only at the model, not at the drawing. And the reason for that is when you're learning how to draw, the irony is a newbie, right? A new student will draw traditionally, meaning look at their drawing on the page, but you don't know how to draw. So how are you putting all your effort on the paper when you don't know what you don't know, right? And a great way out of that is to just look outside of yourself and start seeing, right? Start seeing, and the seeing will help you start to learn, right? And then we start to couple those two things together, the seeing and the thinking, in order for you to draw well, right? So this is this brainwashing of going from learning how to draw blindly and seeing now, instead of just staying in your rut of how little you may know at that point. And then we wean out of it. 50-50 is you draw while looking at the model, but you can look at your page as often as you want, but you don't draw when looking at the page. So you're still kind of enforcing the idea of drawing with looking, right? And then finally, traditional is where you look at your reference, right? And then you look down at the paper and you draw it, right? So that's process number one. And we do that for quite some time. That goes pretty much through all of force until we get to form, which is now what we're going to be talking about today, since we have longer time periods. Okay, process two. So I change this up when students start moving into getting more structure into their work, right? So now what we do is we say, you know what, I'm going to have you draw, and I'm going to do this today, anywhere from like 30 seconds to maybe 1 or 2 minute max. I would say max at 2 minutes. 30-second to 2-minute drawings. So you iterate, right? What you're doing is you're searching for the big picture. You don't want to invest your time in something that's going to take you 10 minutes or 2 hours, right? Unless the foundation is good. Again, the irony here is newer artists, newer students, what they'll do is they'll do one drawing and then they'll put in 2 hours, right? And they'll get down here and go, oh man, I hate my drawing. I don't like how it turned out. It's typically because of a problem all the way at the very beginning, right? It's usually something up here. So I want to teach you not to do that. I want to teach you today to say, you know what, I'm going to iterate first, right? So you're going to iterate, meaning you do it over and over to get the big picture, right? Understand where the forces are. And this is another reason why drawing with force is so powerful, because it doesn't take that much time to get a full figure down when you know the forces and you know the rhythms, right? To give you that big idea, to see when is it worth putting more of my time in, right? So it's a big time saver. So here I am, right? I got 30-second, 1-minute drawings. I do one of those drawings. I do the second drawing. I do the third drawing. I do the fourth drawing. I do the fifth drawing. Now remember, I've only done 30 set. Let's just say on an average, it's 1 minute. So I'm 5 minutes in, right? 5 minutes, no big deal. And I go, you know what? I think this one's pretty good. So now I decide to put my time in. So this is iteration. Iteration. And this is time. Now I go, okay, here's my 5. I'm going to start investing time. I go in 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm up to 7 minutes, right? And I'm like, I broke it. Or I start to realize it took me 7 minutes in to realize something was wrong with number 5. Something was broken, right? Because now I'm like really starting to focus in on things. Maybe it was something as simple as the proportion was off, right? Maybe the form or direction space you picked was wrong. Maybe there's a force or a relationship connection that's off, right? So you start over, right? You go back all the way to over here, because it's only a couple of seconds, couple of minutes. Number 6, number 7. Okay, I like number 7. And then I put in my time. Let's say it's, I don't know, 30 minutes, all right? So you took a 30-minute drawing, you put in some time, right? 5 minutes. If you succeed right away, great, right? But here, at least you also learn the art of knowing the road of success. You start to be able to be more critical of your own work, right? By going down the path of time. And you took your best shot, right? You said, you know what? I thought 5 was good. I got to 7, wasn't so great. I went back, I did some quick sketches. I fixed that pretty quickly. And then I put in my time. Your chance, your opportunity here statistically of getting number 30 to look, good, right? Where you're pleased with that drawing, it's really solid. compared to the artist that does one drawing and goes all the way down, let's say to 30 minutes, is so much higher, right? Your success rate opportunity is so much greater, so much higher than it is in working with this process. Now, is this impossible? No. And I would say with more skill, sure, you might do one sketch and just work on it. It's exactly what you want it to be. But I got to tell you, those chances are slim. And the younger and newer you are at, I don't mean younger as an age, but younger to learning how to draw, the less there is an opportunity of that first drawing to be a good drawing, right? So this is the process, right? I'm going to be doing this today. So we'll start my 10-minute timer after I pick a winner from some short sketches, right? To show you how this works. And then we'll go down to 10 minutes, basically, right? So this is the process I pitched to all of you that I want to share with you, that I've been teaching for years on the website. That's been extremely successful, right? And lots of students who are like, darn, I see what I've been doing. I've been doing this process over here, and sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, and more often than not, you're not going to end up with a good ending, right? So now you know, here's the secret to having a higher success rate, right? How are we doing in the chat, Swenley? Any questions from anyone?
Someone asked if this is the same technique that you used when you worked at Disney.
No, at Disney, well, I guess so in a way. I would say, let's talk about, there's two steps here, really. I would say Disney and everything else. All right. I say Disney because, you know, I wasn't in charge at Disney. I've been running my own businesses for many, many years. And I've been employed at some game studios, of course, as well as an art director. But as a director level, I kind of pitch my process like I am with you guys here today. At Disney, you know, I was much younger, and it's not like I had control over Disney animation by any means, but you know, at Disney, an animator would do the same, right? In animation, it's tricky in animation too, right? Because in animation, you're dealing with a big chunk of time, and a big chunk could be 5 seconds, right? It doesn't sound like anything. 5 seconds is a lot of drawings, right? 12 seconds, 12 drawings per second. So now you're at what, like 60, right? So 60 drawings. You don't want to do 60 drawings. You want to do maybe 8 or 10 drawings, which are called keys, right? And then you want to time out those keys and shoot them and take a look at what does that look and feel like. It's the same idea. The idea is hierarchy, folks, right? You want to see big picture as cheaply and as quickly as you can before you start to invest the time. I cannot stress how important this is, how important it's been in my career, and a very successful career in games also, besides animation, but in games for like 20 years. And that is, you don't want to invest until you're ready to invest, right? You don't want to put in the time. You don't want your team to put in the time until it's really worth it, right? To put in the time. So you do everything you can to plan, right? And plan on the cheap, you know, as much as possible. And drawing is pretty cheap, especially if you draw fast. And when I say cheap, it's quick. It's, you know, time, right? Short amount of time to figure out big problems, right? That's how powerful the language of drawing can be, right? So animation, you're doing numerous drawings, right? And, you know, before someone animates, they had storyboard artists that went through this as well, right? And the storyboard artists had to be approved in order for an animator to then jump on and go, okay, I see, this is what I have to talk about. I have to communicate to the audience in 5 seconds. You know, I need to sketch this out, and you plan it out, you block it out, right? If you don't go in there and do every drawing cleanly, right, like one after another, and then look at it and shoot it and go, oh my God, this body's like all janky and it's moving all over the place, right? Like that would never work. That would be an epic fail, I have to say. So you watch somebody like Glenn Keane, let's say, sketch. He'll sketch really fast, super rough, muddy drawings, right? Just to like barf out the ideas, right? Like just get them out on the page and then test, right? And just look at what they're like. And it didn't take that much time, right? The faster, the better. Like just get the ideas down and see. So that was Disney. I say every other job thereafter, because I was typically in director roles, and I would pitch what we're doing here. You know, when I art directed or AD'd anything, I would try to push out as far as I possibly could. I'm planning and planning and planning and planning before I get a whole team involved on a project and send them down the wrong path, right? And planning is cheap. It's nothing for me to go grab reference, put together mood boards, you know, sketch some ideas out, do some quick color comping, you know, like all that stuff is the planning, right? So that's what we're doing. We're kind of planning in that iteration stage before we go down the production line until we, before we put in the effort of pushing into a drawing that takes more time, right? So that's what we're trying to accomplish. Any other questions, Swinley?
Not that I see.
Okay. So what's the next thing? Next thing is zooming in and out, right? So when you're drawing, what I mean by zooming in and out is you might have the model and the model's pose is like this big, right? I'm not gonna even draw anything in here. I'm just gonna say this is the model, right? So here's the model. And what's really important here is to see the big picture, right? It's like, what are the forces of the model? Let's see. What does that give me? That gives me the function. And with that function, I also get rhythm. And to me, again, rhythm is this like seamless chain link of events, right? That make the whole body work and stay balanced and so on, right? So that's the big picture. Now we're gonna go in today and spend more time. So it's not gonna be 10 minutes of big picture. I'm gonna do that in iteration mode, right? Remember at the top line. And then I'm gonna start digging in. So all of a sudden, I might go to a zone that's only this big, right? So here's, let's call this like the detail zone. So wow, very different, right? We've been talking big picture, big picture, big picture, and now I'm going to go into some small moment. So, I'm going to go literally, it's like zooming in and out. It's like, here's the model, and oh, let me look all the way over here, right? Let me look at this. Here's the serratus muscles on the rib cage. Tricky. So what you need to do is you need to go back and forth, right? You need to go like this and see like this. I basically do this while I'm drawing and I put more detail into drawings. I'm zooming out to remind myself like what the big pose is and going in to this one little area, right? I used to talk about this like vacation. So like the whole model would be a country that you're going to visit, right? And then you're on the path of force, right? So while you're on the path of force, it's like a train track, right? Let's say you're in Italy, right? And you start over here, you're in like Milan, right? And you're moving down to Rome. You take this train track and you come through Rome, right? But now you want to get off, right? So you get off the train tracks and you visit Rome and you go and have all the great food and see the amazing museums and artworks and antiquities in Rome, right? But I still know in the back of my head, the track that I took from Milan to Rome and the next place I want to go, which is going to be Florence, right? So let's say this is R for Rome and FL for Florence, right? So I still have to understand what my travel is. I have to understand where I'm coming from besides the moment I'm in and where I'm going to, right? So it's trick, it's definitely this challenge of, again, holding on to big picture and thinking of and enjoying, really indulging in the space that you're working on at the same time. So much harder. Imagine trying to draw like this, right? Where you just go, let me draw the figure. Yeah, let's put this on a separate layer. Now I have this, and this is how I draw. Imagine drawing like this. Let me go around the head, right? There's almost like a magnifying glass right here. Let's put a magnifying glass here. There's a little handle, right? I got my magnifying glass and I draw like this. Oh, let me go around, oh, I find this little exciting moment, right? And then I move to the next place. I have to tell you, it's quite interesting and exciting and super risky, right? Because you don't know the big picture. The chances of success are dropped significantly. And I'm determining success by having a good, forceful figure that stays holistic, right? That works. So this is what you don't want to do, right? You don't want to just kind of, and this is what a lot of students do as well, right? It's kind of crawl along, never knowing what the big picture is. And that's why the drawings are, dead. They don't have movement. They're not connected because they're so focused on one little area and crawling along the body. And again, what we're trying to teach you is big picture. Now we're going to go big and small, big and small, right? This full box. And then, oh, let me take a look at Rome. Big box, let me go along this path here. Big box, I'm getting near Florence. Big box, I'm in Florence. Let me check out Florence, right? There's a lot of exciting stuff going on here, you see? So that's this whole zooming in and out thing. Now, ironically, especially with COVID and all too, we work digitally for the most part, and we're doing all this stuff online. But in a classroom, you could do the same thing. Believe it or not, with your own mind and imagination, you can kind of zoom out, take a look at the entire pose of a model, and then kind of focus your brain in on a particular area, right? And here we could do that. We can do that digitally, right? Okay, last but not least, surface line. I've probably talked about these two artists I'm going to share with you now in the past, but some of my favorites. I was just telling Swenley, I'm in San Francisco right now. I'm actually broadcasting to you from Union Square in San Francisco. And I went to a used bookstore yesterday and came across a huge collection of Arthur Rackham work. Here, I'll spell that out for you for those of you that don't know who he is. I highly recommend you check him out. It's Arthur Rack. I don't know now myself. Is it Rackham? I think there's a TH in there, no? What do you think, Swenley? Can you look this up for me really quick and just find out the right spelling?
Oh yeah, sure.
So Rackham, he was an English artist. I knew he was profound. I didn't realize how profound. There was a giant collection there of books, and every one of them was illustrated by Rackham, right? He's like turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s. He covered, I have to tell you, there was so much stuff there. It was from like Peter Pan to King Arthur to Siegfried and Fafner, like German operas and plays. I mean, just all over the place, right? To the ultimate like classics. Anyway, I bring him up because great artist to look at, and the way he inks, the way he draws, lots of force, lots of form, lots of what we'll be doing today. So how do you spell his last name, Swinley?
You spelled it right the first time. So it's R-A-C-K, then H-A-M.
Okay, Rackham.
Yeah.
Arthur Rackham. So check this guy out. Amazing. Maybe at some point I'll do a video and we'll analyze him. I haven't looked at his work in 20 something years. I totally honestly forgot about it. But now I'm like all gaga on Rackham. I'm going to start bringing him into mentorship and so on. So the person you're looking at here is Charles Dana Gibson, right? Which hopefully by now most of you have heard of. So Charles Dana Gibson, G-I-B-S-O-N. You can definitely find books of his on like Amazon, pretty inexpensive books too. And he was a master, master at inking, master at drawing. So I have students go through drawing Gibson, doing the study of this exact image. And then they go off and they start doing this. They try to bring this over to the figure, right? It's one thing to do a study. I got to tell you, it's a whole other bag of tricks, right? To move this over and start bringing that knowledge into your own drawing. So here's one of our students that Swenley is mentoring at the moment, named Mikey M. And what an excellent job, right? Like, look at how well he took this, this understanding. He did a study of this, right? And then he brought this over to the figure, and you can see how this really starts to work, right? It gives you this very solid sense of structure in the human body, right? So this is a zoom in, zoom out scenario. You really got to get in there. Mikey had to really get in there to sculpt all these lines, right? To look at that arm, right? It's like a brick, right? To see all that solidity and structure, and yet hold on to the big picture and look what's there. There's the short drawing. I don't know how many he did of these. This is the one on this particular image, but there's evidence of, here's my big idea. I'm going to build on that before I invest the time. You see? He also drew some skull drawings. We do skulls at this same period in time because you're learning how to deal with structure, and the head is a super structured element in the human body, right? So excellent work by Mikey. Some of the best we've gotten, I have to say, in the last probably couple of years. Like really, really well drawn, super solid, right? And you could see how he took his knowledge from Gibson, with Swenley guiding him, right, and bringing him over here and getting this great line work to these skulls, right? You want to get it to where it almost feels like you reach in and grab it, or like I feel like I can grab that skull and it's solid and I can turn it in space, right? So that's Gibson, right? After Gibson, we go through Frisetta, right? Which I think is one of the gods of illustration, I have to say, and somebody who, if you haven't heard me say this before, I mean, I followed for years and years and years throughout my time in school and thereafter, and was a huge influence on how I think and how I draw, because man, Frisetta is amazing at drama, right? And that drama comes from force and fluidity, right? He's like the king of all of the stuff that I'm teaching you guys. So the difference between Gibson and Frisetta is taking these surface lines, as you can see here, and he uses the sculpting surface lines to go in the direction of the forces of the body, right? That is pretty amazing. Gibson was going perpendicular. He was creating tubularness, right? Squared offness and roundness, solidity. Frisetta is getting that solidity, but he's also going in the direction of force. Very sophisticated, I have to say. And let's not forget the big picture, right? Look at how much force and rhythm he created compositionally, right? To create this dynamic scene, right? So we have force being used as a compositional tool. And on top of that, we have here the minutia of force as form. Now, is it all the time? No, look, in the line, in the arm, you can see him going around the arm. Why? That gives us space, right? It's giving us a direction in space. The arm already has a curve of force in it, right? It's already arced. So instead, he said, you know what, I've got the arc here. I'm going to get the form in here as well, right? The back, on the other hand, what is he getting? It's like he's getting force, he's getting form, to present anatomy and light and shadow, right? So to me, this is a forfer. He's getting like 4 things out of the force line within an illustration. Pretty amazing, right? And that's why I think, you know, he's definitely one of the gods of force line and how to use it, just spectacular, okay? So I have a student drawing, a recent student. This is Sergio, somebody that I mentor. He'd already gone through Gibson, and here he was starting to experiment with Frisetta. And we have sort of a combination of the two, right? You've got a lot of roundness here in the lower stomach, but look at what Sergio started to do here, right? He started taking these lines and he started pulling them up across the abs, a la Frisetta style, right? Into the shadow over here of the arm, you know, across the ribs, up to the lats, right? To get us to the arm, right? That is pretty sophisticated, you know? That's actually pretty, you know, sophisticated thinking, right? That he learned from Frisetta, right? He even did this, which comes from some of other Frisetta's works, is this sort of tone and light and shadow here. And notice that it's sweeping in the direction of force. So it really continues this whole idea of force up the leg, and then we pick up again in the stomach, you know, and up through the abdominal regions. It's almost like this, right? It's almost like saying, you know, I feel this go like this. It goes around the back. I sweep up the stomach, and then this drives me up to the shoulder, and then basically to the shoulder, right? So this is like, right? This like corkscrewing tornado of action that's happening. And then to Trinda, the model's credit, and then he reverses that, right? And like pulls this arm this way. We have all this stuff that feels like it wants to go that way, but he pulls us and his body in that opposite direction, right? Quite beautiful, right? As you can see. So in order again to do that, now that I have a photo here, right? Big picture, small, right? It's like, what's going on in here, right? Here's Rome. I need to look at the abdominal region, right? It's pulling, right? I can see the sweeping. I'm informed by the big picture to help me know what's going on there, right? It's like a map, right? Know the map before you go in and do the details of the map, right? To be really simple and blunt. Okay, any questions before we start drawing?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions. Let's see. Someone asked, how do we compare the standard industry figure drawing methods like Andrew Loomis versus Michael's force drawing method?
Yeah, so most figure and drawing instructors, they focus on form, right? That is the ultimate goal of most drawing, is drawing, and it's important, right? It's super important. To me, it's really a third of 3 parts, again, force, form, and shape. And to me, the comparison is, I come down always to this one phrase, which is form follows function, right? Why would I draw just an object before allowing that object to appear by how it works? Which I know sounds a little wicked, you know, it's like how to wrap your head around that. But I rather do that and get aliveness in the pose and allow that to inform the forms of whatever I'm drawing, right? Again, if you look around you, you'll see that all the things in this world that you interact with were built based off of what their job is, right? So keep that in mind. And so is the human body, right? You go down those other paths, Most drawing instruction is draw an object, draw an object. Doesn't matter if it's a light bulb or if it's an arm or if it's a pose, it's an object, right? And I'm here to say, you know what, draw from a place of function. How do these things move? What do they do? And out of the doing comes the object itself. I was just, I actually tried to get in. I didn't get in because they were closed this morning, but they have a Dyson shop, and Dyson's, you know, this high-end designer of like vacuum cleaners and hair dryers and all this stuff, right? Like that's a good example of someone who's really trying to think about the function of something and come up with a new form factor for it, right? They have fans that are big circles where the air is in the middle. There's no fan in the middle. The fan's on the ring, for instance, right? And it blows air out in that way. That's somebody who's thinking out of the box based on what the job is, right? Instead of just thinking, I got to do a fan with blades and it's got to spin. And even those are based on how they work, right? Blades are all slightly tilted. So when they spin and they cut through the air, they're pushing air forward because of that tilt in the blade, right? Somebody had to invent that, right? Inventors are people who think on function, right? They come from function and let form appear. That's what we're basically trying to teach you. So it is very different. Where do we come together? We come together in form. I talk about form and perspective and structure as well. But the difference, again, as subtle as it may seem, is we want to make those forms move. And that's what we're going to try and show you today, right? Okay, let's get started, right? I don't want to run out of time. We're already halfway through our hour. So I'm just going to do some rough sketches here. Normally I would put them next to each other, but because of the lack of space, I'm probably going to draw and then do another layer and draw another layer. For all I know, the first one might be good. I don't know yet, right? But these are my quick, I'm going to do some quick drawings, right? Just see what happens here. I'm not going to time myself. I just want to like rough this out. Right? It's like, well, you know, I see the trend is going like this. I'm going to knock the opacity down so I can push a little harder in here. This is a tricky pose, right? Because look at it, right? It's just all this like foreshortening, right? It's crazy. His pelvis, I keep thinking his pelvis is a little lower, and I keep looking, and I'm like, no. His rib cage is pushing against his leg, which means his pelvis is like, you know, like way back here, right? You can see over here that we're just barely getting the edge. His crotch is like over the top of that leg there, right? Super dynamic. Right? His ribs are like this. Got his arm coming out. I got his leg here. I got to be aware of, look how small the negative shape is here, right? It's like, oh man, I've got to really squeeze his body into a shorter space from left to right, basically. I got to watch this distance here, right? Because he's like right here. It almost doesn't make sense to my head, right? I still haven't really, I personally haven't really clicked in yet to going like, oh, okay, it makes sense. I'm like, what's going on? The rib cage is here, right? He's flowing like this. I got his arm out here. I'm just going to put a big circle there for now, nothing more. Right, I got his leg over here, going down like this. Right, I got this one almost lined up with the other knee, right? Not too far away from it. And then we've got his calf like that. His foot, you know, is like in the high to middle of his shin, right? Like I don't have much room again, right? Super narrow. And then this feels very long because suddenly we finally have a place that is like vertical and up and down, you see? Right? That, I mean, this is part of his leg, right? And then we've got his head over here. Right? So he's something like this, right? I'm roughing out, big picture. I'm probably about, just probably at about 2 minutes. I'm trying to make this the one I'm going to work on, but yeah, let's do one other one. Now that I feel like I get it, let's do it again. Just for the sake of iteration, right? I think the trick is right here. I can't get too far from here to here. It's very short. Right? And I keep wanting to elongate it, which is very normal, right? Very common idea of trying to stretch out the space, and it's extremely narrow. See, this felt more comfortable. My brain is starting to accept like the insanity of this this pose. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, it is very tight, and that's fine, Mike. It all makes sense. That's landing pretty well. His head's here, right? So these, like I said, not big time investments, right? I'm just trying to, I'm creating a map, right? I'm creating my plan of attack. Can I get the big picture down, right? I know it doesn't look like anything fancy because it's not. I'm thinking, I'm drawing. It is a forceful drawing. His elbow is way up near his face. Interesting, right? So let's go with this, right? What I would recommend here is if things aren't working for you, you keep trying, right? It might take you 5, 10 times. That's totally fine, right? But you keep drawing until you feel like you get it right, right? So, all right, I'm gonna hit the timer here on my phone. And let's see what 10 minutes will look like, right? Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna do a lot of zooming in and out now, right? I'm gonna zoom in and out, and this is what I want you to do with your mind. I'm gonna make the brush smaller too, by the way. Right, you can see I'm smaller and darker now, right? I'm gonna start like tying stuff down. A little strategically, I'm like, well, I wanna try to get this shoulder. See his arm is here. I'm starting at the shoulder here and here because those are really like the leading edge of force. His upper body is sweeping all of its way over into his shoulders. So I'm kind of grabbing these two curves, right? I can see a lump of this muscle here. I don't want to get too involved yet. I just want to clarify, like, oh, look at that. Look at the apex there in the rib cage, right? Interesting, right? Really, that really helps like understand the full structure of the ribs right in there, right? And this is going to come out and around. It's bringing us, I get to his shorts. I'm going to zoom in here, right? It's like, oh, look at that. Look at the bottom of the ribs literally goes over the shorts, right? It's like, wow, that's how strong the foreshortening is here. It's like all the way down here. So notice what I'm doing. I'm sculpting form. What I'm doing is on a small level, I'm creating this roundness, okay, like that. I'm doing it with these smaller lines at the bottom of the ribs because I want to feel how they're rounded far away from me. But I know that force is going this way in the rib cage, right? So I'm going to pull these lines from the rib cage, that roundness, and I want to try to pull them up into the side here, right? So there's stretching going on, you see? Now that kind of brings me up here again to this arm. All right, so here's his arm. Just going to try to get a little of the shape and form of it in here. Okay, so it's something like this. And I want to, because I want this armpit to pull down from here, and I want to start getting all of this force coming in here like this. Right, here's his ribs, the center of his sternum. You can see his pectoralis right here. And then this side of his body, his ribs is actually blocking his leg, right? It's like right on the edge there. A lot of squashing going on here. So here's the leg. Now think about how impossible this would be without me having my map. I'm like digging into these details, but I feel pretty safe about it. I think it gives me this safety net, you know, because I can zoom out very quickly and go, oh yeah, that's right. This is what's going on here, right? This is the big picture of it all, you see? So now I can get into drawings that have more, you know, more detail, right? Which I know we get requests for all the time, and we usually just don't get to it because it just takes more time, right? But you can see how this brings us into the world of Frisettas and Arthur Rackham's and some Gibson. And that is different than some of you were asking before about Loomis. Loomis is a little bit more like Gibson in that line is usually created to generate form, not force. And that was an aesthetic, you know, that was an aesthetic. That was a sort of a philosophy of the times, you know. I think Loomis, from what I recall, was probably also around like 40s, 50s or so. And a lot of those guys, you know, use line to create structure, you know, and I don't know why I don't have an answer to this, but Frisetta knew how to take that extra step, you know. I know that Frisetta looked at Bridgman, you know, Bridgman's got a lot of movement in him as well. Not so much sculptural like Frisetta did. I think Frisetta really took everything to its higher level, you know, and again, inspired just so many generations of artists, right? So here I'm trying to tie down the shaping of the leg, you know, and get the positive, negative shapes to work pretty well, right? I'm looking at like the calf muscle. I'm looking at this shape right here. And without getting too crazy maniacal about it, I'm trying to make sure that at least the big ideas land. You see the calf muscle has to cover the foot, for instance, right? So my map is helping me on my travels, right? I'm traveling around Italy, one of my favorite countries to visit. And it's working, right? Like my map is working. I set this all up while I was at home, right? And I can then therefore enjoy these smaller moments, right? These detailed moments. It's allowing me to zoom in, right? So here's all the force of the leg. I want some roundness in the leg. I'm kind of pulling that off over here, right? Any questions in the chat, Swenley?
Yeah, someone asked if when you draw, if you talk to yourself the same way you talk when you teach.
Yeah, that's a good question. No, I don't. I think not externally. I think in my head, I have my own sort of internal conversation that's going on, but I don't sit there, talking out loud. Yeah, my wife would probably shush me into a separate room or something. But I'm okay with talking. I think years of doing, again, caricatures and teaching and stuff, like it's fine, doesn't bother me. I think it's good. I think it's actually good practice. I've had students in mentorship do that, and I've had them. I haven't done this in a while, to tell you the truth. And thank you for the question, because it just reminded me of it. Is to have a student talk their way through what they're drawing. So that's a good note for you and I, Swanley, to remember for mentorship. Is ask the student to talk while they're drawing, which is super crazy and new, right? They'll be like, "Oh my God, like it's embarrassing enough I have to draw in front of you. That's what I normally get. And now you want me to talk out loud?" Like, it's tricky, right? It's challenging just to do it. But I think it's great, right? Because you start to recognize, like, wait a minute, I'm not thinking about force. I'm not thinking about form. I'm not thinking about these ideas, right? You're just not even thinking. You're kind of copying, and I'm thinking here like, oh, his fingers, they're not very strongly, but they're gently grabbing the hand, right? So I want that gentle grab. I'm aware of that. It's a functional idea. I'm looking at the function of that as I draw this, right? So we're getting there. I got 3 minutes left. All right, we got some sculpting going on. I want to get some angling of his face in here. I think when you get to these upper time limits, I think it's really nice to try and get something of the model's face in there. Face just adds so much to a drawing, It's like we don't really get to do much of that in the shorter poses, right? So let's try to get something of Trinda's face in here. That's a turning edge, by the way, that I put over there, right? So I can tell I'm a little off with the face. I'm not going to go back and change it at this point, but my eyebrow, or his eyebrow, is closer to the shoulder than it should be. I'm going to tuck his head in a little bit behind, right? Try and get his eye to look the right way, which is tricky. It's like literally nudging pixels around at this size to get it to work right. And then you can see the bag under his eye. Looking a little more right than I want him to. His head feels biggish to me, but I have to say, when I look at the photograph, it is kind of big because it's in the foreground. I'm just thinking about the scale of the rest of the body, but it actually is kind of large because of the lens on the camera and the space that he's traveling, right, to come towards us. So you can see this is where I'm losing like his mustache and all, because I have his face tucked in too far. All right, but at least we have a face in there. Let's get his traps in here. All right. Yeah, I'm not pleased with the head. I think it could be maybe a touch smaller, just a little bit. Sculpt out the roundness here. I got 26 seconds left. I like all the pulling that's going on here in the forearm. There's elbow. I can sculpt out the roundness of the elbow. I'm trying to add some force lines down here. You can see a lot of this going on because look at all the pull, that's going on in the forearm muscles here and the rotation of that happening into the hand, right? All right, time. So there's an example, right? Let's see, cancel there. All right. There. And that's 10 minutes and still there's plenty of room and work to do, right? But at least what we have is I did a couple of iterations for you. I basically picked the second one, started putting in my time, started getting the sculpting going in there. Challenging pose, of course, right? I had to get my head over those two drawings to believe, right, what I was looking at, like the shortness of how foreshortened this whole torso was. And then I used the map, right? The map really helped me feel like I can trust what I did before, right? That I did that work, I can trust it, I can go in there and kind of build upon it. So that's it. I'm gonna hand it over to Swenley before we run out of time. And I'll take care of the chat so you can get started. Let me see, let me give you share power here, co-host. Okay, it's all yours and I'll stop.
Yes, thank you, Mike. That was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Clip Studio and move the video over here. So let's say, I think I'm going to do like maybe 2 1-minute versions of the pose before we dive into it. So let me get my timer here. All right. That big lat is tricky because it could be easy to think that that's the force curve. Now, but I think when the torso is upright like this, most of the time it's an S curve from the spine to the stomach. Let's see. So it's a lot of weight and strength. You can see like all the veins popping out of his leg. All the power is putting on it. So this goes up, and we have the arm here.
Hey, Swenley.
Yeah.
Could you take your photograph and put it on the left side? Because on YouTube, it puts your camera up in the right, and then we can't see the top of the model.
Sure.
That'd be great, just so we could see the reference better.
Yeah, sure. Let me see the 1 minute is over. Let me pause this.
You're a righty, right?
No.
You're a lefty. Oh, that's why it's easier for you. I see. Okay. Or maybe down. If you put him lower, that's okay too. Just so he's not in the top right corner.
Let's see. Is it better here?
Let's see. Yeah, that might. I have to wait until it shows up on the channel.
Okay.
Yeah, just keep working. I'll tell you right now. Otherwise, it looks like it's your head on the model's body backwards. Yeah, so just keep working.
Yeah. So we have the axe sticking out here, and it looks like he's bending his head forward. All right, first pass. Let's do another quick one. And I think I want him to like lean forward a bit more. So it's outside, inside, outside, inside ankle, and outside foot. And then shoulder blade is rotated, arm is lifting up. the strong arc right here. And just grabbing this X. Let's not forget what he's standing on. All right, so this one is good. Then it's exactly on the 10-minute mark. So I'm going to take this one and continue working on it. So when working digitally, I like to take advantage of that and work in layers. So I'm going to drop this down, let's say 50%. And so let's do another pass on top. Let me start my timer as well. So let's see, the big picture is there for the most part. So I'm going to go down the pyramid in a sense and keep refining that, you know, from the big picture to the smaller details. So let me see this, it's like the straight moment right here. This is pushing out at the stomach. You can use the band of his shorts here as the top of the pelvis. So this is stretching of the elbow, like popping out, and the arm. Let's see if I have more room here. Now it's almost off screen. The arm would be here. Then we have this huge lat muscle. See, so head leaning forward, let's get it straight there. This is the jawline and the ear. So this all pulling and stretching. No, so this is a top view. So essentially we are looking at the like the bottom plane of the pelvis area. That's important to keep in mind because the gluteus muscle needs to like wrap around that form in order for us to work. You can use a short here to give us some form. Sticking out. Notice the almost like the bottom plane of a box here underneath the knee joints. So I'm going to keep the foot as a simple shape for now. And of course, look at what he's standing on. Like often I see students focus on the figure and ignore what the figure is interacting with. Now, this is also part of the story, so it's important to get it in there, even if it's just rough. Keeping in mind that the inside ankle is a bit higher and the outside one is lower, creating this angle. Let's see, so the same as here, like it's not super obvious, but there is the same landmark. You know, you have like this folding line at the back of the knee joint, which shows you in which way the leg is rotating. So it's an inside ankle and an outside foot. See a little bit of the front of the foot sticking out. Some form here in the thigh as well. So it's on the stretching, we have the elbow. Then we have the forearm muscles. Are there any questions in the chat, by the way?
No, nope, hold me down the fort.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of people posting like drawings that they drew along with us or drew from the stream, you know, on Instagram and stuff, which is great
Cool.
to see. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I usually bring this up, but keep in mind, everyone, obviously asking for a forced membership or mentorship, that's a great gift idea. If not for yourself, right, then maybe an artist that is in your life, you know. We get quite a bit of that every year. And I think that's such an awesome idea as a present is, you know, furthering your own education, right? Your own hobbies, your own interests. So yeah, come check us out. Hopefully you've been enjoying the, you know, the videos this past year. And there's obviously a lot more of that on the site itself.
Yep, that's the best Christmas gift.
Yeah. I think education is a great gift. Education and inspiration, you know, are awesome ones. And last but not least, I love experiences. I think experiences are great gifts. So this is an experience of, you know, of learning.
And we had, of course, a discount for mentorship, right? That's still going. It was still the
there is. Let me see. I have to. Yeah, there is a discount, a pretty big discount right now on mentorship. Actually, thank you for bringing that up. I will type in here for you guys the code. There's a coupon code. It's over in about a week. Hold on, getting it for you right now. It's not very well known either. I haven't really been pushing it, admittedly, not purposely, just because of being busy. So here it is. If you go, this is for 12 sessions only. So it won't work for the single or the 36 session packages. You want to use coupon code new mentee 2021. This will give you $400 off of mentorship, and it ends January 1st. So there you go. There's the info. I've never in 7 years given a discount on mentorship. So it's the first time ever, right? So if you're really interested in mentorship, or you want to give it as a gift, or you want it as a gift, maybe people are asking, what do you want? What do you want? And you don't really know yourself. Here you go, right? And it's a pretty amazing offer.
Yeah, see, it's almost time. So when I see his hand here, I almost want to draw like a head that he just chopped off of someone. Like he's holding the prize. All right, I think it's time. So yeah, 10 minutes, plenty of time. Let's put it to a stop. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this and saw like what the process is to take a drawing further. We want to start with the big picture, and once you have the big picture, the foundation going, it's easy to just have fun, and adding details and stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Swinley.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let me stop the share.
All right, let's head back to Photoshop. Actually, let's just stay here. So we will be here, I think Swinley, you're gone next weekend, right? So Mattesi and I will be here right around, New Year's Eve, I believe, is next Friday. So we'll be here, right? And I have to see, I think it'd be worth doing a 20-minute. I wasn't sure how much detail we would get into today, but I think we'll do one more session on this, close out the year. We'll do 20-minute poses. So Mattesi and I will be here to give you a much longer duration figure drawing and really get into more and more minutia. So that's it. Have a very happy and safe holiday, especially those of you celebrating Christmas right now. And I will see you in a week. And same to you, Swinley. Have an awesome Christmas.
Thank you, Mike. For you
You're
too,
welcome.
and you guys as well. See you guys.
Thank you.